Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss one of the most important topics in the social history of England, the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was not merely a technological development, it was a revolutionary transformation that affected every aspect of human life. It changed how people worked, where they lived, how goods were produced, how people traveled, and even how society was organized. Before the Industrial Revolution, England was primarily an agricultural country. Most people lived in villages and earned their livelihood through family farming and small scale handcrafts. Production was carried out manually, and transportation was slow and inefficient. However, being in the 18th century, England witnessed a remarkable transformation. Machines replaced manual labor, factories replaced cottage industry, and industrial cities emerged as center of economic activities. Because of these profound changes, historians regard the Industrial Revolution as one of the most significant events in the world history. It laid the foundation for the modern industrial society in which we live today. In this lecture, we'll examine the cause, major inventions, social consequences, and historical significance of the Industrial Revolution. Let us begin by understanding the meaning of the term Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution refers to the transition from hand production to machine production. It was the process through which traditional method of manufacturing were replaced by machine system. Before industrialization, goods such as cloth, tools, and household items were produced by skilled craftsmen working in homes or small workshops. Production was slow, labor intensive, and limited in quality. With the production of machines, production becomes faster, more efficient, and capable of meeting increasing consumer demand. Factories emerged as center of mass production, bringing together workers and machineries under one roof. The Industrial Revolution be- began in England around 1760 and gradually spread to Europe, North America, and other parts of the world. It is called a revolution because the changes it brought about were dramatic and far reaching. These changes affected not only industry but also agriculture, transportation, communication, education, and social relationship. Therefore, the Industrial Revolution marks the beginning of the modern industrial age. To understand the significance of the Industrial Revolution, we must first examine the condition of England before industrialization. Prior to the 18th century, England was largely an agricultural society. Most people lived in rural area and depended on farming of their livelihood. Manufacturing was organized through what historians call the cottage industry or domestic system. Under the system, families produced goods in their homes using simple tools. For example, spinning and weaving were often carried out by family members as part of their daily activity. Although the system provided employment, it had several limitations. Production was slow, output was limited, and demand often exceeded supply. Transportation was slow, roads were rough, travel was slow, and the movement of goods was expensive. As population increased and market expanded, traditional method of production became insufficient. Society required new technique that could produce goods more quickly and effectively. The Industrial Revolution emerged as the response to these economic and social needs. The Industrial Revolution did not occur suddenly. It was the result of several factors working under over a long period of time. One important factor that was the agricultural revolution, which increased food production and improved farming efficiency. Another factor was the availability of natural resources such as coal and iron. These resources provided the energy and materials necessary for industrial development. Population growth also played a significant role. As the population increased, the demand for goods expanded, encouraging industrial production. Scientific discoveries and technological innovation contributed greatly to industrial progress. Inventors developed machines that increased productivity and reduced manual labor. Britain's colonial empress supplied raw materials and created markets for manufacturing goods. This global networks supported industrial expansion. Political stability and a strong banking system further encouraged investment and entrepreneurship. Thus, the Industrial Revolution was not caused by a single event but by a combination of economic, social, political, and technological factors. Before factories transformed industry, agriculture underwent significant changes that prepared the way for industrialization. This process is known as the agriculture revolution. Traditional farming methods were gradually replaced by more scientific and efficient technique. One important innovation was crop rotation, which involved growing different crops in succession to maintain soil fertility. The enclosure movement also transformed agriculture. Large landowners enclosed common lands and introduced modern farming methods. Although this increased productivity, it also displaced many small farmers. Selective breeding improved the quality of livestock, while better farming tools increased efficiency. A key features associated with agriculture reform was Charles Townshend, often known as Townshend. He popularized crop rotation and contributed significantly to agricultural development. As food production increased, fewer workers were required on farms. Many rural laborers migrated to towns and cities in search of employment. The surplus labor force later became the workforce for factories and industries. Therefore, historians often describe the agricultural revolution as the foundation upon which the industrial revolution was built. One of the most important reasons for the success of the Industrial Revolution in England was the abundance of natural resources, particularly coal and iron. Coal becomes the primary source of energy during the Industrial Revolution. Before this period, people depended mainly on wood and water power. However, as industries expanded, a more powerful and reliable sources of energy was needed. Coal met this requirement perfectly. Coal was used to power steam engines, operate machineries, and fuel factories. England possessed large coal deposits, marketing it easier and cheaper to obtain these valuable resources. Iron was equally important. It was used in the construction of machines, tools, railway, bridges, and factories equipment. As industry grows, the demand for iron increased significantly. The combination of abundant coal and iron provided England with a major advantage over many other cities. These resources formed the backbone of industrial development and they contributed greatly to Britain's economic growth. Another important factor behind the Industrial Revolution was population growth. During the 18th century, England experienced a steady increase in population. Several factories contributed to this growth. Improved agricultural method ensured a better food supply, reducing the risk of famine. Advanced in machines and sanitization also helped lower death rate, as many people survived and lived longer. The population increased rapidly. This population growth had two important effects. First, it created a larger workforce for factories and industries. Industrialists could easily find workers to operate machines and manage production. Second, a growing population increased demand for goods such as clothing, food, furniture, and household items. Manufacturers responded by increasing production. Thus, population growth provided both the labor force and the consumer market necessary for industrial expansion. The textile industry was the first sector to experience major changes during the Industrial Revolution. Before industrialization, spinning and weaving were carried out manually in homes. Production was slow and could not meet increasing demand. A series of inventions transformed textile manufacturing. John Kay invented the flying shuttle in 1733. This invention enabled weavers to work more quickly and efficiently. James Hargreaves developed the spinning jenny in 1764, which allowed one worker to spin several threads simultaneously. Richard Arkwright introduced the water frame in 1769, which used water power to produce stronger yarn. Samuel Crompton later invented the spinning mule, combining the advantages of previous machines. Edmund Cartwright's power loom machinized weaving and greatly increased production. These inventions revolutionized the textile industry and demonstrated the potential of machinized manufacturing. The success of the textile industry encouraged similar development in other sectors of the economy. Among all the inventions associated with the Industrial Revolution, the steam engine occupies a special place. Although earlier steam engine existed, James Watt significantly improved the design in 1769. Watt improved steam engine was more efficient, powerful and reliable than previous model. It could operate machines consistently without depending on natural force such as wind or water. The steam engine transformed industrial production. Factories were no longer limited to location near rivers. They could now be established wherever coal and labor was available. Steam power also revolutionized transportation, leading to the development of steamship and railways. Many historians consider the steam engine driving force behind industrialization because it provided the energy requirement for large scale production. James Watt's contribution, therefore, remain one of the most important achievements of the Industrial Revolution. One of the most visible outcome of industrialization was the rise of factory system. Before factories emerged, production was carried out in homes through the domestic system. Workers controlled their own schedule and used simple tools. The factory system brought workers and machines together under one roof. Factories introduced large scale production. Machines performed tasks more quickly than human labor, increasing productivity and reducing cost. Workers were required to follow fixed schedule and strict regulation. The factory owners controlled the production process, and the employees received wages for their labor. Although factories increased efficiency, they also introduced challenges such as long working hour and repetitive work. Nevertheless, the factory system became the foundation of modern industrial production and remains an important feature of contemporary economics. Industrial growth required efficient transportation system. As factories increased production, manufacturers need better way to transport raw materials and finished goods. Roads were improved through new construction technique. Better roads reduced travel time and facilitate trade. Canals were also built to transport heavy goods such as coal and iron. Steamship improved maritime trade by enabling faster and more reliable travel. Most important, railways transform transportation on an unpredicted scale. Improved transportation connected different regions of England, encouraged trade and simultaneous economic development. The railway revolution was one of the most remarkable achievements of the Industrial Revolution. George Stephenson played a crucial role in railway development. His steam incognate demonstrated the practical advantage of rail transportation. In addition, railways encourage communication, tourism, and cultural exchange. The expansion of railway network transformed both the economic and everyday life, making England more connected than ever before. Industrialization led to rapid urbanization, which refers to the growth of towns and cities. Factories created employment opportunities that attracted people from rural area. Cities such as Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, and Leeds expanded rapidly during this period. Urbanization brought economic growth and increased opportunities. However, it also created a serious social problem also. Many cities become overcrowded, housing was often inadequate, and the sanitation facilities were poor. Despite these challenges, urbanization transformed England from a predominantly rural society into an increasingly urban and industrial nation. Although industrialization generated wealth and economic growth, many workers faced difficult conditions. Factory employees often worked 12 to 16 hours a day. Working environments were noisy, crowded, and dangerous. Safety regulations were minimal. Wages were gradually low, especially for unskilled workers. Workers had little legal protection and limited opportunities to challenge unfair treatment. Childhood labor remained one of the most controversial aspects of the Industrial Revolution. Factory owners frequently employed children because they could be paid lower wages and were considered easier to manage. Children worked in industrial mills, factories, and coal mines. Many performed dangerous tasks in hazardous environments. The issue of child labor highlights the human cost of rapid industrialization. Women also played an important role in the industrial workplace. Many women found employment in textile factories and other industries. However, women generally received lower pay than men. Working conditions were frequently difficult. Despite these challenges, industrialization increased women participation in economic life and gradually contributed to broader discussion about women's rights and equality. As workers became increasingly dissatisfied with industrial conditions, they began organizing themselves into trade unions. Trade unions were associated formed to protect workers' interests and improve working conditions. These organizations demand higher wages, shorter working hours, safe workplace, and fair treatment. Initially, trade unions faced opposition from employers and government authorities. Over time, however, they gained influence and become important advocates for labor rights. Despite its problem, the Industrial Revolution produced many positive outcomes. Technological innovation accurately leading to improvement in transportation, communication, and manufacturing. Economic growth create wealth and expanded trade opportunity. Standards improved for certain sections of society, particularly the middle class. The Industrial Revolution also encouraged scientific research and technological progress, laying the foundation for modern industrial civilization. Alongside its benefits, industrialization created significant social and environmental challenges. Factories released smokes and waste contributing to pollution. Rapid urbanization led to overcrowded housing and the development of slums. Economic inequality increased with industrialized accumulation wealth while many workers remained poor. Long working hours and unsafe conditions affected the health and well-being of laborers. These negative consequences promoted demands for reform and influenced later social and political movements. The Industrial Revolution transformed the structure of English society. A prosperous middle class emerged, coins- consisting of factory owners, merchants, and professionals. Industrial capitalism became the dominant economic system. New opportunities for social mobility emerged, although inequality remained. The family structure, pattern of work, and daily life were all affected by industrialization. In many ways, modern society is a product of the social challenge initiated during the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution had a profound influence on English literature. Writers obsessed. the social problems created by industrialization and incorporated them into their works. Novelists portrayed poverty, childhood, urban overcrowding, and class inequality. Thomas Hardy depicts the effects of modernization on the rural communities. Through literature, readers become more aware of the human consequences of industrialization. To conclude, the Industrial Revolution was one of the most transformation event in human history. Beginning in 18th century England, it revolutionized industry, transportation, agriculture, and society. The Industrial Revolution transformed England from agriculture nation into the world's leading industrial power and influenced the development of countries across the globe. Thank you.